Hi everyone, please subscribe my YouTube channel. During supper one evening, my mother leaned forward over the plates, her gaze piercing and unwavering, and hissed, "Your achievements are worthless. Anna is the only daughter who truly counts." My spoon halted halfway to my mouth. For years I had trained myself to choke down the resentment, to smile thinly while they adored Anna for the smallest crumbs of effort. But that night, something inside me fractured. I placed my spoon down carefully, met her stare without flinching, and replied, "Then prepare to watch me erase you from my life." The quiet that followed was absolute. My father kept his eyes glued to his food as though the sentence had nothing to do with him. Anna's lips curled into a satisfied little grin, basking in the warmth of being their chosen one. They assumed I would stay silent, as usual. They believed I would keep accepting the part of the overlooked daughter. But what happened afterward? It didn't merely rattle their flawless portrait of family togetherness. It set the whole canvas ablaze. Growing up in our home felt like competing in a match where the deck was deliberately stacked against me. From my earliest memories, Anna was the dazzling center of our household universe, while I was merely a faint silhouette forced to circle her brilliance. Every minor thing she accomplished was hailed as extraordinary, whereas my victories dissolved the moment they left my hands. When I was 9, I won the regional spelling championship. I raced home radiant, clutching my little plastic trophy as if it were solid gold. My father barely lifted his eyes from the sports section before murmuring, "That's lovely, dear." The same week, Anna produced a wobbly rainbow painting in art class. My mother had it professionally framed, hung it proudly in the entrance hall, and invited half the neighborhood to admire Anna's budding artistic genius. I still recall standing in front of that picture, feeling my own triumph evaporate into nothing. Birthdays painted the identical picture. Mine always brought sensible sweaters 2 sizes too large, basic school supplies, and a $20 bill slipped into a generic card. Anna's birthdays were explosions of color, helium balloons, themed cakes towering with frosting, and extravagant presents she never even hinted at wanting. At 13, I received a second-hand bicycle with rusted chains. At 10, Anna was handed a brand new laptop, and whenever I dared voice a protest, Mom's reply never changed. "She's exceptional, Sophia. Don't be envious." Even when I outworked everyone, it was never sufficient. I delivered perfect report cards term after term. Their reaction, a distracted "well done," before the topic swung inevitably back to Anna's untapped promise. When Anna barely passed with mediocre grades, my parents ordered pizza and threw an impromptu party to applaud her trying her best. It was infuriating, like I was being penalized for not requiring constant rescue. The partiality wasn't simply noticeable, it was suffocating. At family gatherings, aunts and uncles would ask about our lives, and my parents would light up recounting Anna's latest dance recital or how wonderfully she guided her group project. I would sit there unseen, pushing peas around my plate while they boasted about my sister as though greatness was her birthright. The deepest wound? I craved their pride so fiercely it ached. I convinced myself that if I just pushed harder, reached higher, maybe one day they would look at me the way they looked at her. But no matter how many trophies I earned, how many competitions I dominated, or how many double shifts I pulled at the cafe, I remained the spare daughter, the one they felt safe ignoring because I would always manage alone. That is how I was raised, conditioned to accept that Anna was the radiant star and I was fortunate simply to revolve in her glow. Yet as the years passed, I began to understand something powerful. Being constantly overlooked granted me a strange liberty, and liberty allowed me to construct something far grander, tougher, and more relentless than they could ever foresee. By the time I turned 15, the contrast between Anna and me had become excruciatingly clear. That was the year I took my first job at a small diner 2 blocks away, wiping sticky tables and pouring endless coffee refills for tips. I wanted money that belonged entirely to me, because I already knew that asking my parents for anything meant hearing, "Money's tight right now," only to watch Anna strut in wearing brand new limited edition sneakers the very next day. I remember saving for months to buy a used smartphone. Every extra shift, every crumpled dollar bill from tips went into a hidden envelope beneath my mattress. The day I finally walked out of the store with it, I felt invincible. Meanwhile, Anna whined that her phone case clashed with her aesthetic. 2 days later, Mom drove her to the mall for the latest model plus an entire collection of designer covers. The pattern repeated with education. I hunted scholarships alone, burning midnight oil perfecting essays and triple-checking every form. Dad's only guidance? Don't count on us for much, Sophia. University isn't cheap. Yet when Anna announced she wanted to attend an exclusive private arts college with tuition that made my eyes water, my parents didn't blink. They co-signed massive loans, hired a private admissions consultant, and reassured her, "Don't worry, darling, we'll take care of everything." And they did. Tuition, a new wardrobe, spending money, everything. When I turned 16, I pieced together every paycheck to purchase a battered Toyota with 180,000 miles on the clock. I still remember driving it home, beaming despite the rattling exhaust. 1 month later, for Anna's 16th birthday, they unveiled a gleaming Jeep Tide with an enormous red bow in the driveway. The pictures flooded social media. My Toyota. I began parking it 3 streets away so Anna's friends wouldn't mock the dents. The worst part wasn't the material things. It was how my parents responded to our choices. When I worked late, dragged myself home bone-tired, and still maintained perfect grades, they labeled me self-sufficient. A polite way of saying I wasn't worth the effort. When Anna skipped lectures, switched majors repeatedly, or complained about the slightest inconvenience, they rushed to cushion every fall. I sometimes wondered if they even noticed the lessons they were engraving into us. To me, claw for every inch, expect zero help, and keep proving your worth endlessly. To Anna, the world will always catch you, no matter how often you stumble. In a cruel way, that imbalance sculpted us perfectly. Anna learned helplessness wrapped in entitlement. I learned resilience forged in fire. She was their polished princess, beautifully hollow. I was the forgotten one, quietly forging armor they would never see coming. By the time I reached university, I still nursed a fragile hope that distance might finally open their eyes. I made the dean's list every semester, juggled 2 jobs, and kept my grades nearly flawless. Professors recommended me for research projects. Classmates begged for my notes. I thought maybe now they would finally see. They didn't. When I phoned home bubbling about a prestigious internship I had fought tooth and nail to land, Mom answered with breezy indifference. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Oh, did you hear Anna is spearheading a charity drive at her campus? Everyone says she's a born leader." I gripped the phone, stunned that selling cupcakes for charity somehow eclipsed months of grinding corporate experience. The script repeated endlessly. Awards, commendations, glowing performance reviews, I brought them home like offerings. My parents would nod politely, offer a thin smile, then pivot immediately to Anna's latest breakthrough. When she barely passed a course she had nearly flunked, they acted as if she had cured cancer. When she painted a wall for a friend's cafe, they hosted a celebration dinner for her visionary talent. It wasn't merely disheartening, it was degrading. I remember one Thanksgiving when an uncle asked about my studies. I began describing the high-profile clients I was working with, only for Dad to interrupt. "But have you seen Anna's new portfolio? She has such an eye." All heads swiveled toward Anna, and I sat there once again invisible, stabbing cold, mashed potatoes with unnecessary force. The message was unmistakable. No accomplishment of mine could ever compete with Anna's sparkle, however fleeting or superficial. They didn't care about balance sheets or strategy meetings. They wanted drama, applause, and a spotlight for Anna, even when the spotlight illuminated nothing substantial. Here is the raw truth. The more they disregarded me, the fiercer my ambition grew. Every slight became fuel. I stopped begging for their attention and started chasing something far larger. The certainty that one day my success would be so colossal they could no longer pretend I didn't exist. Back then, though, I was still the daughter shrinking at the dinner table, while my Asita parents fawned over Anna as the carrier of our family name, while I silently shouldered the task of carving my own destiny. They had no idea their neglect was honing me into a force they would never be prepared to face. Graduation day was meant to be a pinnacle of joy. 4 years of relentless grind, nights without sleep, essays rewritten until sunrise, weekends surrendered to extra shifts just to cover rent and textbooks. I had earned highest honors, pressed my gown myself, and reserved 3 prime seats for the people I still foolishly believed cared most: Mom, Dad, and Anna. I reminded them repeatedly the week before, texted the ceremony time, even sent parking instructions. Mom had sworn we wouldn't miss it for anything, sweetheart. I believed her. That morning, as I waited with my classmates, my phone vibrated. A message from Mom. "So sorry, darling, can't come today. Anna has an important meeting with a potential backer. This could change everything for her. We'll do something special for your graduation soon. So proud of both my brilliant girls." XO, I read it 4 times, each pass carving deeper into my chest. Some casual coffee meeting with a pretend investor mattered more than watching me cross the stage after everything I had sacrificed. When my name echoed across the auditorium, I walked forward and scanned the sea of faces. Parents screamed, waved signs, clutched flowers, wept openly. In the 3 seats I had saved, there was only absence. No cheers, no proud tears. Just cold, empty chairs screaming that I was alone. The dean clasped my hand, smiled warmly, and whispered, "Outstanding achievement, Sophia." I managed a photograph smile, but inside I was crumbling. I wanted to bolt from the platform, rip off the cap and gown, and howl that none of it meant anything if the people you loved refused to show up. Afterward, I lingered outside, clutching my diploma, watching classmates enveloped in proud family hugs, cameras flashing for memories that would adorn mantles forever. I slipped away unnoticed, climbed into my weathered Toyota, and drove back to my apartment with the diploma lying like a cheap certificate on the passenger seat. Somewhere on that lonely drive, everything hardened. Between the silent auditorium and my empty living room, I understood I could no longer wait for approval that would never arrive. My parents had chosen. Anna was their future. I was the footnote, so I chose too. From that moment on, I would build for myself alone. I would create a life so towering that when they finally looked up, the view would already be out of their reach. After graduation, I reduced contact to almost nothing. No more Sunday calls, no holiday visits, no more fragile hope. Instead, I poured every ounce of energy into my own empire. The early years were brutal. 60, sometimes 70-hour weeks, days at the office, nights devouring books on finance, investing, and property management. My apartment looked like a campsite. Mattress on the floor, card table for a desk, a second-hand laptop that wheezed and overheated. Dinner was instant noodles or peanut butter straight from the jar. While Anna posted sunlit brunches and rooftop cocktails, I sat under a bare bulb crunching numbers until my eyes burned. My first leap came 6 months later. A crumbling duplex on the wrong side of the tracks. I emptied my savings, $12,000, and took a punishing loan for the balance. The house was a nightmare, flaking lead paint, leaking pipes, wiring that sparked if you looked at it wrong. Professional quotes were astronomical, so I taught myself. Weekends became marathons of YouTube tutorials while I scraped popcorn ceilings, laid laminate, and learned, through trial and near electrocution, how to rewire outlets. My palms blistered, my spine screamed, and some nights I sat on the floor crying from pure fatigue. But every repaired wall felt like I was repairing the parts of me they had broken. It wasn't seamless. My first tenants vanished owing 4 months' rent and left the place gutted. I poured thousands into repairs and ate the loss, but I also learned background checks, ironclad leases, how to evict without losing my mind. By the end of that first year, the duplex finally turned a small profit. A few $100s a month, but it was mine, tangible proof that pain could become power. I funneled every cent back in, no concerts, no new clothes, no life beyond the grind. My family barely registered the change. On the rare occasions I visited, talk still revolved around Anna's exhibitions, her networking parties, her groundbreaking concepts. When I mentioned purchasing my first building, Mom waved it away. "That's lovely, dear. Guess what? Anna is thinking of launching her own studio." I stopped looking for praise. I no longer needed their applause. Each grueling night, each bleeding knuckle, each reinvested dollar became my private triumph. I was building not for their approval, but in defiance of their indifference. And while they clung to the fantasy of Anna's destined glory, I was stacking bricks for a fortress they would one day beg to enter. By age 26, I owned 3 rental properties. Nothing flashy, but each one cash flowed positively, compounding month after month. I mastered refinancing, contractor negotiation, and spotting deals blocks before anyone else. For the first time, I wasn't merely surviving, I was thriving. Yet at family gatherings, nothing had changed. At one strange Sunday lunch I mentioned offhand, "Closed on my 3rd building this year, already fully occupied." Dad glanced up for half a second. "Just be careful, Sophia. Property can be a gamble." Then immediately returned to praising Anna's new logo designs for a friend's tiny shop, as though she had just rebranded Nike. When I earned a promotion that doubled my income, Mom's response was, "How nice. Did you see Anna's work was mentioned on a lifestyle blog?" The blog was a pay-to-play site anyone could buy a feature on for $50. They celebrated it like a Vogue cover. Every Christmas Anna unwrapped luxury while I received practical, thoughtless gifts. One year she got the newest MacBook. I got a generic gift card. Mom beamed. "We knew you'd buy something sensible with it." I forced gratitude while rage simmered. Meanwhile, Anna's career unraveled. 3 ventures launched and abandoned in as many years: custom clothing, a photography side hustle, vague, creative consulting that consisted of charging startups for half-baked mood boards she never delivered. Each collapse was soothed away. She's still finding herself. I no longer argued. I had stopped caring whether they saw me. Privately, I kept expanding. Still driving the same dented Toyota, still eating cheap, I poured everything into growth. By 27, I controlled 6 buildings and my rental income surpassed my salary. I wasn't just accumulating wealth. I was purchasing independence. Yet every family event remained a shrine to Anna's potential. They called her the family's shining hope. I was the silent backdrop. What they couldn't see, and what made me smile alone in the dark, was that their golden girl's luster was already tarnishing beyond repair. And when the reckoning finally arrived, all their worship wouldn't be enough to save her. The cracks appeared slowly. First, her studio folded when she couldn't cover rent. Then the gleaming Jeep vanished, repossessed. At the dinner table, tales of Anna's next big break grew shorter, more forced. I said nothing, only listened, while my own portfolio swelled to 9 properties and a net worth climbing into 7 figures. The dam broke the day. A respected regional business magazine ran a cover story. Sophia Mitchell, 28, amasses $1 million real estate empire before 30. My photograph smiled confidently in front of a beautifully restored Victorian I had rescued from foreclosure. I never sent them the link, someone else did. Within 48 hours, my phone exploded. Dad first. Sophia, we saw the article. We need to talk. Incredibly proud. Then Anna, had no idea you were doing so much. We should totally partner. Your building's my branding genius. Finally, Mom. Darling, this is unbelievable. Family celebration immediately. Call me. After decades of silence, suddenly I was their prodigy. I let them stew for weeks, ignoring every call, every tearful voicemail. When I finally agreed to dinner, the facade crumbled quickly. They began with rehearsed pride. We always believed in you, sweetheart. Mom gushed, smile too bright. Dad nodded vigorously. Your mother's right, bursting with pride. Then Anna shoved a laptop toward me, slides clearly slapped together that afternoon. Picture this, your properties plus my aesthetic direction. We'd be unstoppable. You handle the boring numbers, I'll make everything beautiful. I almost laughed, but the truth poured out within minutes. Dad's company had collapsed under mountains of debt. Mom's shopping addiction had maxed every card. And Anna, unemployed for months, was still living at home, bleeding whatever cash remained. Dad's voice broke. The bank issued a foreclosure notice. We need $160,000 to keep the house. Sophia, you're our only chance. Mom clutched my hand, tears theatrical. Please, baby, we made mistakes, but blood is blood. You wouldn't let your family become homeless, would you? Anna, smirk finally gone, looked small. If you bail us out, I'll work for you. No salary, anything. I'll prove myself. I leaned back, pulse steady, heart strangely calm. For the first time in my life, they needed me far more than I had ever needed them. And I knew exactly what I would say. I looked at the 3 desperate faces across the table, parents ashen, sister twisting her napkin into knots. And for one fleeting second, the old Sophia, the one who had once begged for scraps of love, almost spoke. But she was gone. I withdrew my hand gently from Mom's grasp, met each of their eyes in turn, and spoke the words I had waited half a lifetime to deliver.